Strategy number 2 is not a typo. It is satisficing. Okay, you did look it up before if you're curious. It's what we call a portmanteau. I think that's how you pronounce it. I don't really know. Which is when you take two words and you shove them together and you make a new word, right? Like, what's an example? Sorry, say it again. Ginormous. Ginormous would be, gigantic, enormous. Okay. So anyway, what is it a combination of? It's a combination of, I think it's weird because both of these words always mean the same thing. But anyway, it's a combination of satisfy and sufficing or sufficient. Okay. So this is the word that means, what does sufficient mean? When something is sufficient, it's enough. It's like, that'll do, okay? So what is satisficing? It means that rather than going through a set of solutions, you're like, I want the very, very best one, right? It just means, just find one that'll do the job, okay? And it doesn't have to be the best one, but if it's enough, if it's sufficient, then we'll just go with that, okay? So here's my example, because we were thinking of shoes before. Every morning I wake up, and except for like holidays and that kind of thing, I generally wake up before the sun is up, okay? So it's full on dark, and I don't like to turn on lights and all that kind of thing, because most of the lights in my house are fluorescent, and if you know, fluorescent lights are more power efficient over long periods of time, but if you just turn on and then turn off again, it's really bad. Does anyone know why? The ignition of a fluorescent light takes up about 15 minutes of power, just the ignition, okay? So if you turn it on and off, and then on and off, you use half an hour of power, okay? So that's a real waste. So instead I just use this. Can you see it? Ta-da! Okay, because this is, when it's totally dark, this is enough, okay? It's not as bright, obviously, but it'll do, okay? Now, I wake up, and I'm looking for socks, okay? Now, I own, like, I don't know, maybe 15 pairs of socks, okay? And most of them are kind of like different combinations of black or blue or grey. But almost none of them are the same, okay? But here's the thing. It's the morning, I'm kind of in a hurry, and to be honest, you can't even see my socks anyway, okay? Yeah, you're all looking now. Now, what I do is, I don't take the optimizing approach, which is to look through every single sock, and then I pick the ones that are most identical, okay? What I do is, I get them, and it's quite dark, right? So I'm like, does this kind of look like this one? That'll do, okay? And then I just pick them, and that's enough, okay? So, obviously, it wouldn't be sufficient if I pick up a black one or a white one. I'm like, okay, I have standards, all right? So I don't take those. But if it's like black and dark grey, I'm just like, whatever, okay? It's enough for me. It'll do. It's sufficient. So I go with that, okay? So what is a less trivial example of that rather than just socks? Let's think of, what was our previous topic? We were doing communication systems, right? Okay. So I want you to think of a router. Okay, a router. Now, do you remember there were 3 kinds of things which we said reside at the center of a star network? Okay, one was a router. What were the other 2? What were the other 2? They were nodes, not computers, but things that joined other computers together. Do you remember what they were? Switches, right? Routers, switches, and one more, the simplest one, was a hub. Okay. Now, do you remember so that was in reverse order. Routers are the most complicated, and switches and hubs more simple. What was special about a router? What can a router do which other things can't? Okay, right. So it's sending a signal, right? And it chooses what steps that signal should take to get to its destination. Okay. Now, how does it choose? This is a decision support system question. How does it choose which path to go on? What do you think it's prioritizing? What's its goal? Speed, generally. Okay. Now, can anyone tell me why, generally speaking, would a router, if it's trying to get maximum speed, why wouldn't it optimize? Why wouldn't it go this way? Yeah.
That takes too long.
That's right, right? If you think about, as you have the number of nodes increasing, right, between a source and destination, okay? At the moment, there's just one way, okay? When you add in 2 nodes, okay, well, there's not 2 ways, right? You could go here and then here, or here and then here, or you could go here and then here, I don't know why, but say you didn't want to use this connection here, and you didn't want to use this connection, so you go that way. So you've got more combinations. As I put in more, you can see the more. Sorry, that was redundant. The more combinations there are, it's very, very confusing. Okay, and these are all connected to each other at the moment. That's a mesh. That's a full mesh. But if it was a partial mesh, it's a very, very complicated problem. And then you add in, some are slower than others, and some are longer than others, and it's confusing. So if you were to optimize, this would take you forever. By the time you made the decision, your signal could have arrived, right? If you just sent it. Okay. So what do most routers do? Okay. Well, they say, look, I just want to pick a path that'll do it. That'll do the job. Okay. It'll be reliable. It'll get there in sort of like reasonable time. And so it just picks one because there's all these different options, right? And it'll take forever if it weighed them all up. It just picks one that'll do. Okay. So even though that's communication systems, it's still a decision support system kind of question, right? A really important idea that you want to get along with satisficing is, what are the minimum criteria? What things must I absolutely satisfy before I say, yep, I'm okay with this solution? Right? So with my socks, my minimum criteria is vaguely the same shade, not opposite shades. So long as they're not black and white, I'm good. Okay? Once I get anything that meets those minimum criteria, off I go. I put them on and I forget about them for the rest of the day. Okay? So once you meet the minimum criteria, for instance, say you're driving a car, right? Can I get from A to B in less than 15 minutes? I don't care if it's 12 or 13 or 14. As long as I can get there in 15, that'll do me. Okay? So it doesn't matter which one you pick. They're all sufficient. All right? Okay. Yep.
Does it still involve testing?
It may still involve some testing, but certainly not as much, and not to as fine detail level, if that makes sense. Okay. All right. Does anyone else have any questions about satisficing?